Congress now. My first guest tonight has the honor of being the newest member of the House of Representatives. Tom Reed had a whirlwind week last week that included a stay in the hospital on the day he was supposed to be sworn into office. He eventually did get sworn in, and he's joining us tonight from our Corning Bureau. Thank you very much for your time, Congressman.
Well, thank you very much, Liz, for having us on.
Well, so how are you feeling? You had a bit of a health scare there. You had blood clots in your lungs, which sounds fairly serious to me.
It definitely was a serious situation. I suffered a pulmonary embolism Monday at about 1:30 in the morning, rushed to George Washington University and received top-notch care, and now we're back up. We're going 100%. Doctors assure me there's no long-term implications. I got a clean bill of health, and we're just getting things moving forward. And it was definitely one of those moments in life where you take a deep breath and just reflect. Nice to have my family and friends with me, surrounding me, and all the support that I received from all the people from the district just was overwhelming. But we definitely are a lucky individual, and we're just going to move forward and make sure that we keep an eye on our health going forward. Yeah,
well, obviously you can't serve if you are not in good shape. It was also, on the day you got sworn in, your birthday. You're 39 years old, so happy birthday to you as well.
Thank you very much.
It's been kind of a crazy week. I just also want to ask, though, and this might seem odd, but at the time that you went into the hospital, you were not a congressman, so you were sort of between jobs. What was the situation with the insurance?
I'm still under my private health insurance that I have through the office. I have my own law practice and the businesses I run, so we have health insurance through them, so that was covered through that plan.
Did it change the way you feel about health care reform by any chance?
No, you know, healthcare reform is a priority issue, and I still say we have to have that debate and put the repeal of the healthcare, Obamacare, back onto the table, because we haven't dealt with the fundamental issue, and that's the healthcare costs. And in suffering what I suffered, obviously I know we have the greatest healthcare system in the world, top-notch people. We want to make sure that that system is protected and that it doesn't become a system of mediocrity. You know, and I truly believe it has to be always in the hands of the private sector to ensure that we have the best health care out there. But we have to refocus our debate on the health care cost side of things, and that's one of the things that we're going to do, I think, next year.
So what you've already had your first vote. It was to renew extended unemployment benefits for jobless Americans. That was not the vote that you took. You would have voted no on that. Sorry. It was to give disaster victims more time to apply for federal aid. The second one...
We cast a vote on the... Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, we cast a vote on extending the administrative deadline for hurricane relief from 2008, and we were sworn in right after the unemployment vote.
But you would have voted no on the unemployment vote, is that correct?
Yeah, we have been asked that question, and you know, we try to be as open and candid as possible, and my position on we were prepared to vote no on it because it's going to add to the federal debt, the federal deficit. We need to make sure every time we take a vote in Congress, in my opinion, that these things are paid for and that we're limiting our national debt exposure. And in this situation, we're at 99 weeks with unemployment benefits. And I empathize with people that are out of work. I know it's the holidays, and I know people are suffering. But there's a point where we have to face these hard decisions. And that's what we got elected to do, and that's what we're going to do.
But extending the timeline for people to get federal disaster aid, does that not also increase the cost for the federal government?
Well, the appropriations for that was back in 2008. My understanding that wasn't going to add to the federal debt going forward, and it's an administrative vote just to extend the paperwork, so make sure the paperwork got filed properly.
I see. Another vote that you're going to actually be able to cast that your incoming fellow freshmen are not, because they will not get sworn in until January, is on Charlie Rangel's censure. How will you be voting on that?
You know, we saw the recommendation on Charlie Rangel on the congressman's situation. I believe censure is appropriate, giving the charges and what he was found guilty of. And we're gonna vote for the censure.
Have you spoken to any other members of the delegation? I know that you're new, but some people, particularly the downstaters, obviously, who have known Congressman Rangel for a long time, feel very sad about this situation, and there's some speculation that there will be a higher than usual absentee rate on that particular day.
You know, I haven't talked to them about any absentee rates or anything like that. I know that some members of the delegation expressed support for the congressman. But as I come into this, you know, we are held accountable. We should be held accountable, and you know, we're held to a higher standard, and I accept that, and I think Charlie Rangel now accepts that. And a censure penalty to me is appropriate given the nature of the charges that he was found guilty of, and it's a penalty that has to be paid.
You know, you had this unusual situation where you were technically, people voted for you twice on Election Day, once to fulfill the end of Eric Massa's unfulfilled tenure, and then again for 2 years on your own tenure. So now that you are a congressman in good standing, we ask, look around and see that there's going to be a redistricting coming up, and it's likely that the state will lose 1, if not 2 seats. And I wonder if you have had any conversations with people about that, and if you're concerned about your own district.
You know, I know the redistricting issue is out there. We talked about it when we first decided to get into this race, and my position on it fundamentally hasn't changed. It's out of my control. All I can do is be the best congressman, be the best representative that I possibly can be, and that's by doing the work. And I think we demonstrated that on the campaign trail with the 75,000 plus miles on the car, and you know, the work ethic that we demonstrated. And I think if we demonstrate that we're a worthy representative, I am confident wherever the district boundaries are that we'll be successful going forward. And you know, to me, the priority has to be, that's 2 years down the road. The priority today has to be to get the office up and running, make sure that the people of the 29th Congressional District are represented, because we haven't been represented for over 8 months until last week. And make sure that we're there and accessible and doing the job. And that's what I'm committed to, and that's what we're going to focus on. Shortly
before the election, you actually contributed $25,000 to the Senate Republicans, who arguably, if they make it back into the majority, are going to be controlling the redistricting process. Is that what you had in mind when you gave that money to them?
Well, we made also a sizable contribution to the NRCC at the national level.
Yep.
Yeah, $50,000 to the NRCC, and we made a $25,000 to the state Senate campaign. And the reason we made that campaign donation was to send a clear message that we hit all of our budget goals on our campaign. We had covered the expenses of our campaign to the end of the cycle. And we wanted to show that we're standing together, because one-party rule in Albany, one-party rule in Washington, D.C. just wasn't acceptable to me. And now that we look like we're going to get the state Senate, at least in the hands of the Republican Party, that's a check on one-party rule in Albany. Down in Washington, D.C., now that the House is in the majority situation with the Republican, it's a check on the Obama and the one-party rule of Washington. And I think that check is a good system, the checks and balances that it offers. And that's why we stood with our fellow campaigners in Albany and our campaigners in Washington, D.C.
But certainly you would be faring better if the Republicans, if your fellow Republicans are in control of the state Senate when time comes to redraw those lines.
Well, you know, we're going to put our faith into the process. We do support the independent commission process, Ed Koch's recommendation or committee that he's putting together. But obviously we want to make sure that there's a voice, and it's just not one party. As we've heard from Democratic leaders in Albany, that they would draw the district line so there's no Republican Party that I think would be drawn into oblivion. You know, that kind of attitude and that kind of philosophy cannot be the correct philosophy when it comes to this issue. It has to be based on some rational thought process, take the party politics out of it, and do it fairly and equitably.
Well, Congressman, I want to thank you very much for joining us. Congratulations, and good to see that you are up and at 'em.
Well, I appreciate those well wishes, Liz, and to everybody out there that expressed those well wishes. To my family and I truly appreciate it. Thank you so much for that outpouring of support.